The climate change part to the story, where are we with that? When we watched the documentary, when you were making the documentary, you were talking about the need to address it, people denying it, the grid being inefficient, needing updating. What's changed in 2 years along those lines?
All those things that I talked about in the movie are now coming true. I talked about the fact that we're just going to soak the grid with renewables, and then people will begin to realize. I said there was a line in the movie where I said, if I ask people $50 million to fix the problem, they're not going to give it to me. But if I create the problem, well, we've created the problem now. The problems, and it's really a topic of discussion in Vermont. So Vermont continues to be focused on cleaning carbon out of the grid. Now, on the national level, although it seems like the pendulum is, when we first did this movie, there was a different climate at the national level. But now, you can't even talk about climate change. In fact, I'm careful not to even talk about climate change as the CEO, because I don't need to. Vermont is focused on 90% of its energy coming from non-carbon sources by 2050. We're here to support the state of Vermont. So today I don't even talk about climate change because it creates too much controversy even to use the term. So the term I don't think isn't even acceptable today. But Vermont continues to have the focus to move forward. And I know New York State.
Yeah, a lot of states do. They're setting the goals,
right.
2030, 2040,
New York has
2050. Are those realistic goals to hope to beat it, 70, 80, 90% renewables by those dates?
I said in the movie, we can solve this problem. We can solve this problem. I will tell you too, it's not cost. We've kept our rates flat for 5 years now. So I think it's a great goal. I think we should all be working towards it. It's a wonderful, even forget the climate change component, it's a wonderful engineering and technical challenge. Yeah. And I think people are in this business for challenge. I certainly love the problem.
But the point you made in the documentary back then was that those can be goals, but if your grid can't handle all the renewables, then we're not making progress, and you just can't cut out fossil fuel generating electricity cold turkey in other states.
No, you can't cut it out cold turkey. I'm glad you're bringing that up, because you have to set the goals, and then you have to work the complex issues. I just came from Vermont, where we're having deep discussions about how to solve this problem. I feel Vermont wasn't really diving into the physics of the problem, but now Vermont is. And one of the people in this hearing said, "This is the most complex problem I've seen in my 27-year career." And that's when I say, good. Now we're getting to the heart of people's understanding.
Are there some negatives? You'll run into people that think the solar fields are just popping up everywhere, that there's like the corridor down Route 7 where they have popped up in fields and they're ruining the aesthetics. And so is it a delicate balancing act?
Well, I think it is a delicate balancing act. That's why we have to be careful in how fast we move. You're not going to fix this problem in 5 years. And there are people who will be fanatics and tell you we need to fix it in 5 years. Well, we're only going to move so fast in terms of people's acceptance. Now, if things change dramatically in the climate, I'm sure people will become more accepting. I'm not going to I'm not going to forecast the future. Who knows when this is all going to happen. But the reality is, even taking climate change out of it, it's still a good goal, because it's, as I said in the movie, if we can get to the point where we can be in balance with the amount of energy that comes on the Earth, well, and capture it, it's probably going to be the lowest cost alternative in the long term.
I think you have to balance the physical challenge with the political challenge too.
Right.
And some people are drawn to a physical problem, and some people are drawn to a political problem. Mm-hmm. But when you said this is not something that's going to be fixed in 5 years, that's a big problem in the realm of politics, when we have 2-year election cycles and when we have quarterly earnings reports in the private sector. This is something that we need to orient ourselves through the long term, and it involves massive amounts of public investment. Some of that may be direct investment, some of that may be encouraging and nurturing nascent industries that will only come to fruition in 10 or 20 years. And as we've said many times, this is a moment where we're living in an epidemic of short-term thinking. And And just today we got the news that the president had approved a tariff on solar panels from abroad.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that will help American industries compete. Maybe it will really slow down some of the incentivization of going with renewables. But clearly there's a political challenge as well.
And we see that in the film, where you are talking about the idea of smart meters and the need to go in that direction. And I think a lot of people would be surprised that you get resistance. And this isn't from the right. This is from the middle and from the left and progressives alike, that you run into that resistance.
When it happened during the time when I was filming, I was furious. I went from loving these politicians to thinking they're sellouts like everybody else. But at the end of the day, that was the point in the movie after we edited that it became true to me. And the more times I watch it, it's even more true that, they're just a reflection of the consumers and the people out there. And if, I'm sorry, I have a hard time with Al Gore because he flies around in private jets and, he's pushing this agenda that he can't even live. We have to live the agenda. We can't just ask someone to make laws that make us live the agenda. We have to want to live it, and we have to change our culture. We have to adjust. We have to change the way we do things. I think it really does come down to greed with most issues we're facing. Everybody wants, but they don't want to give anything up, unfortunately.
But I'm going to give you the optimistic view of all this, that ultimately this is, having a fully renewable energy cycle is our destiny. It's going to happen. So I work all across the country, even in some of the deepest red states, consumers want solar. So the utilities are, we're not politicians, we're problem solvers. And one of the things I'm proud of the utility business because they're great engineers, they're great problem solvers. We will solve the problem.